understand. I know, oh Lord, I know it's in my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way it treated me too many times before. Don't you know you love me, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side today I've died. Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Thunderdome. So I am well rested, but unfortunately, while I got a really big nap in, apparently I've been sleeping since 8 p.m. I just slept until midnight. That's 4 freaking hours of sleep. That's a lot of sleep for me. And I woke up with a hell of a stomach ache because right before I went to sleep, I cooked dinner for the family, and pretty much all we had was a pack of bologna. So I cooked fried bologna and mustard sandwiches. Is the music still on? The music should still be on. Can you hear me okay now, Joey? This is the usual news scene window, so I've had to modify it some bit, but I didn't think there was any other stuff in here. Stuff and things and stuff. Eh, it should be okay as far as I know. But yeah, the music mix is kind of obnoxious. I can't like do anything about that other than every time it plays going into the individual where it lists the file and then turning, like I have to right click and then wait a second and then I can adjust the volume. So yeah, maybe if I had some sort of inline compressor, virtual compressor on the stream. You know, I actually did take audio engineering in college. A long time ago. But that's got very little to do with video editing. What do you even call this when you're doing a live stream? Video casting? I don't know. But anyways, as I was just telling Joey in rather graphic terms on cell phone text message, I'm having some stomach issues. And yeah, fried bologna. I need to stop saying those words, actually. Anyways, so what we're looking at here in the top of the screen, I want to get right into some news. By the way, we're gonna come back to the weather in a hot minute. What we're looking at here is Hurricane Harvey. It was just going to be a tropical storm, but then it merged with this upper level low that was kind of, well, it just kind of looks like it's surrounding it now, but look at the way that banding is just giving way. I mean, that. Welcome, Coachisms. And I used to live in Houston too. What part of Houston? Looks like they're just starting to have fun down there in Manville and down off 288. And Galveston Bay is probably whipping up pretty good. Yeah. Sugarland might have just barely skirted that last cell through that moves through there, but I can't tell through where from the zoom in. How is it down there? Did y'all get any big cells yet? We got one earlier. I'm in central Louisiana, and we had one pass through here, man, that just laid 2 inches of water on the ground in like half an hour. It just, like, people were pulling over off the side of the road because nobody could even see to drive. Kind of crazy. But if that's any, if that's a proper example of what this storm has to offer, it's going to be something else. So there she be right there. And these maps are from weather.unisys.com, which I have been using for 20 years now. And they are a company that... Macna? You're going to Macna? Going to Macna? You'll see me if you're at Macna. So, you know, if any assassins want to die, now would be the time to drop like flies before me. Okay. Yes, I'm announcing where I'm going to be. That hardly ever happens. Ah. Speaking of which, I got hair in my mouth. That hardly ever happens. Only I did just wake up from a nap, and I was probably sitting there like licking the pillow while I said, Okay. Saints and Texans. Oh, man. Come on. The Marine Aquarists of North America. Okay. And that's basically, if you've ever been to a saltwater aquarium, like your local city aquarium, what this is going to be blows that shit out of the water. Okay. This is going to be every great coral supplier and every great fish tank equipment supplier in the world. Okay. And they're going to be doing this in New Orleans. And I'm supposed to be going tomorrow. Could just go Saturday. I'm not sure when I'm gonna go. I'm not going to announce the time of my visit, So, because I've been doing counter intel against fucking Russia for 3 years. I'm like the one-man CIA until the fucking election happened, apparently. Or until last August. Last August is when the FBI and our government actually started doing what I had been doing for years prior. And last I checked, they had a better budget than me. So, I'm not saying I was effective or anything. I just say I tried. And, anyways, I wonder how much anybody would know about Russian hacking if it wasn't for the few, and several British, by the way, spies that have been in contact with me over the years. And before the dossier was even a thing, I was already in contact with the FBI, with the NSA, with the CIA, with the military, trying to tell them our country was about to be invaded through basically a fake election process, starting with the Alex Jones propaganda network. And that was 3 years ago. Well, 2.5 years ago on YouTube, and 2 years before that, and a year and a half before that, running on Ukraine, support Ukraine USA, and on Facebook. So it started with a Facebook group because I didn't know what the fuck else to do, and I eventually made it on YouTube, thinking that the flat Earth community would be open-minded enough to realize that everything they were even still being brainwashed with by the fake flat Earth community, it's all a lie. It's all a lie. Everything. I mean, the only newscasts that are slowly catching up to the truth are like Rachel Maddow and whatnot. And I am a first and foremost Christian. I don't consider myself a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, I'm a Democrat. I'm not a conservative or a liberal, because I think both people who say they are either conservative or liberal are basically completely full of shit. And anyone who's trying to put people in the categories of conservative or liberal or left and right are simply trying to divide us as a part of a very complex plan of conquest. And people need to really wake up to what that looks like, because it happened in Europe for 20 years now and we just didn't pay attention to it. Now it's happening here. Anyways. So, on that note, I I could basically just say I'm the G word. It's rather quaint, if you ask me. But I prefer Archmage of the Realm. And earlier, I was having some fun outside. I mean, like, real fun, too. Like, okay, it was kind of stress relief. Yesterday, I finally got to get my wife to sit down and talk about 2011. And there was one thing that I kind of remembered one way, and she helped me remember the full truth of it. And that was that I remember experiencing a little moment of frustration. Because she wasn't able to withstand the spirit pressure of the Holy Temple when it came down. And that kind of answers the question of, who's Stark and who's Lilynette. Which of us came first? And I'm not going to get depressed about that. Again, I was just explaining how earlier, when it came time to play with the weather, I seem to have gotten my mojo back. And man, I'm telling you, like every wave of my hand, lightning struck. Every time I changed the fluid structure of the atmosphere, as soon as I did it, the fucking winds came the direction I wanted them to, and I was just smiling. It was great. And sure, like a naive little infantile moron might hear that and be like, oh, I can't watch this anymore. This guy's crazy. But I've done this shit on video, kids. Don't fucking test me. This storm and, every storm in recent memory has had, at least the ones that have hit around here, have had very lock-stepped consequences regarding my fate. Starting with Gilbert. Gilbert hit as soon as I got to Houston. Okay? And ever since I've lived on the Gulf Coast, there's been, periods in which I did want storms to hit, and periods in which I didn't want storms to hit. As I said, up until recently, no storms are going to hit. Not since 2011, not since I woke up. No storms have fucked with us at all. But my subscribers may recall, just a few days ago, back when they were saying this one was going to get short by a upper level low, after I was getting irritated by the disrespect and dismissiveness from people with IQs drastically lower than mine. And I don't mean to be very much like Donald Trump, but I've been the one who basically, on sheer intellectual prowess, has been guiding this country in the right direction, and being frustrated by the fact that nobody fucking listens to me. And I have to sit here and watch as nobody listens to me, and they suffer the consequences over and over again. And you'd think at one point they would say, we trying to listen to her, maybe we should go doing a thing now. But they don't do that. They can't. Because YouTube, chicken shits, suppress my broadcast. So even though I have completely proven myself, even though I have been proven right in every warning I've given, Even though this should be the most popular channel on YouTube, this is by far the best, most informative channel on YouTube. Certainly the most accurate as far as predictions and analysis goes. By far. I get 3,100 subscribers, and I get 2 people. Look. 2 people. And again, YouTube, you better pray to God I can fucking successfully sue you. Oh wait. Won't do you much good, will it? But anyways, let me get off my soapbox for a while. Just please understand that the reason why I've been bitching so much lately is because I'm merciful. And wrath is upon you. And this is not wrath. This is just me having fun. Okay? And this storm right here, unless I boast enough and ruin it, which I'm still, considering doing, whether or not I should do, unless I jinx it, if you will, this is going to become a very long-lasting, very, very, very destructive storm. Take a picture of the coast, because that's the last time you're going to fucking see it. It's not going to look like this anymore. But anyways, my stomach still hurts. I feel kind of dehydrated. My coffee's in the microwave, way over there. Way over there. Well, anyways. So, I got a lot of sleep. And what usually happens when I get a lot of sleep is people that are praying for guidance seem to get a whole hell of a lot of it. I always feel like waking up reduces my brain function. I do feel like I'm much more myself in my dream state, especially these days. So I try not to sleep that much. I try not to interfere with free will and man's little plans for themselves. They made a big deal about wanting to decide their own faith about 500 years ago. Which, by the way, just to bring people up on speed, okay, since you're all morons, that's not your fault. You've been misled. You've had wool pulled over your eyes. And basically, there are very few people who have the first clue about the current standing of the relationship between God and man regarding the covenant situation and prophecy, revelation. So, the second coming happened about 67 AD. All right. The 1,000-year reign happened right after that. The final Armageddon happened 1,000 years ago. Okay. What we're doing right now is sort of a rinse and repeat cycle. What we're doing right now is a result of the final battle between heaven and hell, which started about 666 AD. but the seeds of which had been sown in the 330s. Okay, even before that, or around 289, 290 AD. Okay, and even then, I can hop, skip, and jump you back all the way to the beginning of time. On the map, I can show you through history exactly where the evil goddess and her bastard son wound up, creating empires and shit. Anyways, welcome back, Joey. So, that's the kind of brief lowdown is 500 years ago, the horde, if you will, the combined Mongol Khalifa, had basically destroyed most of Europe. And a very weird peace was established, and not very well kept, but just well enough to where propaganda could kind of finish us off. And everybody in Europe wound up being at each other's throats, and everyone was sort of despairing and blaspheming the name of God and saying that, basically, what good is God if he won't save us? What good is God if he let this happen? Not taking even a moment to reflect on their own deeds, not just their hypocrisy. But basically, the Roman Catholic Church that you know of at this time was being destroyed for their sins against the true church, which was simply known as the Kingdom of God. And yes, the first Kingdom of God was not the Holy Roman Empire that you know today. It was centered around Alexandria, Egypt. So, what you can read in history books as the killing of the Templars, is something that I tell on this channel as being a much broader Holocaust I call the Johannite genocide. And this involved not just direct conflict, but sowing the seeds of war so that destruction would happen through other means as well. And basically, Revelation 18:6 played out against them, the Catholic Church, a long time ago, starting 1,000 years ago, and proceeded for roughly 480 years until they essentially all sold their souls. They voted the king out, and he voluntarily allowed them to seal him away magically for 420 years, beginning in 1560-ish. I don't reveal the exact number, because I don't reveal my fucking birthday, do I? Anyways. It's exactly 420 years. From the last battle I participated in Europe. Anyways. So, fast forward to today. Basically, the actual army of Satan has a country. You call it Russia. It's not. Russia is a ruse. It's a ruse about the rose line. Okay? Russia is the one who's been conflagrating Christianity and been corrupting churches and preachers for decades, if not easily traceably centuries. These are the people that basically send in the false Jews while causing people like Donald Trump's black friend to think that all Jews are fucking Edomites or Khazars or something. And he says that these people are just so fucking confused. They take individual things, many of which aren't even facts, and tie them all together in such a way that anyone with experience in counter-intel and propaganda can see that what they've been programmed with is trolling. Okay, they've been programmed with a mental outlook of trolliness. And what I mean by that is basically keywords are useless in helping these people because they think they know a little bit about fucking everything, but all they've basically had, all they've learned is a bunch of lies. I mean, connecting the Edomites to the Khazars is pretty easy, but then connecting that to the Egyptians and the Hyksos, and just saying that that's all the Jews, that's what I mean by trolling. Basically, it's saying, yeah, all of this stuff that is evidence, it all points this way. So anytime, and I already know what it'll look like if you go on Google right now. I already know what it'll look like. Anytime you search for any of these things, especially the things that I talk about on this channel, Google, the Russian-infiltrated fucking treasonous piece of shit traitors to humanity, have rigged the search results in such a way that enables these trolls to control the conversation. And anytime you're looking for proper information, what you find is their information dominance. And the only research you will find is fucking Kremlin-sanctioned research that is designed to take your soul away and lead you against the nation that protects your freedom. Lead you against the Jews who taught you what freedom was. And I'm not a Jew. I'm a former skinhead, okay? You fucking people are stupid. People have accused me of being a George Soros operative and all kinds of shit. I'm still waiting for two things. One, for somebody to call me a liberal or a George Soros operative in person. Just one. The other is I would like one day to actually see a Make America Great Again hat in person. I've never seen one. I live in the most infamous, butt-hurt, fucking baggage-ridden, Civil War, Confederate town in the South. the town I live in is called fucking Slaughter, Louisiana. Okay? It was named for the bloodiest slaughter of the Civil War. That happened right here. I am surrounded by angry ghosts right now. I am surrounded by an undead army. Okay? There is never a night without fucking crazy fog around here. Never. It doesn't matter how high the fucking barometric pressure gets. And granted, it's Louisiana, right? Swamps and shit, right? It's really not that fucking swampy right here. Not swampy. I've driven through swampy areas. Okay? I know when the fog is and isn't supposed to be there. There's not only always fog around here, but it's always creepy looking fog. It just like comes up off the fields and like sways around towards the roads and like it's really cool actually. But there's a lot of legends and stuff about the haunting spirits of the Civil War dead around here. And you would think I would have no problem finding Trump supporters around here, right? You would think you'd just go to Walmart and see a bunch of fucking Make America Great Again hats and stuff. Alright? No. I have never seen a Make America Great Again hat in person. Haven't seen fucking one. Not during the entire election cycle. There were a bunch of Trump-Pence signs way on the other side of Baton Rouge in this very ritzy fucking upper class area that wants to basically secede from the Baton Rouge school district because they don't like their tax money going to help the black kids. Okay? That last flood that I, plainly told you was coming, that I demonstrated my dominance over on video. Banana. Well, that fucking took care of all those fucking signs. They didn't go back up after that storm. That whole fucking area. Water literally built up here and flooded from here all the way down to there. Okay? And I should not be thinking like that while waving my hands around because I can fucking do terrible amounts of magic on accident. That's how ridiculously powerful I am. Archmage! Boat stack! Okay. Yeah, like my wife will yell at me if I'm just talking about something and I start gesturing with my hands while it's a storm outside, because then lightning starts striking right by the house. Like, okay, like get this through your thick skulls, people. If I allow it to rain while my wife is driving on her way home from work, she is fucking furious with me. She blames it 100% on me. Why would that be, do you think? Yeah, I need my fish hook, huh? I don't remember having a magical fish hook, I must say. But I did find the handle of it very interesting. The handle on the fish hook. And also the way it wound up breaking. The way they showed it after it was broken anyway. That's pretty cool. Obviously, I do enjoy that movie. I don't really enjoy the way Maui looks, though. Like, why'd they have to make him such a fat ass? the only reason, just to, yeah, the fish hook definitely did have some engravings similar to the wand too. All the well, engravings. The markings on this wand are natural, well, supernatural, but they were not carved, nor did they look like they could have been. Anyways, just a stick. Just a stick that follows me around through multiple lifetimes, and I can't seem to get rid of it. So, I kept on bordering around a point I was trying to make earlier regarding taking naps and wonderful things happening. Exhibit A. Exhibit B, however, jeez. No, you can't touch it. Anyways. Ooh, I like how I left the transparency thing on there, and now I got like the little bar in my ooh, can I do the weather? Wait. Oh no, wait, come on. Come on. There we go. Okay, so here we have a front moving in, blah, 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 blah. And here's the giant cock and balls. It was much funner when I had people's noses to pick. That, and I'm like, I'm not tired enough to be goofy enough to know what to do other than make the storm part of my forehead. Now, if that like shows up in pictures in the clouds tomorrow morning, that'll be fucking creepy. Not surprising, but creepy. Anyways, I'll put my image back down where it was. Okay. Alright, so what you're looking at up top is the weather.unisys.com GIF files that I've recently downloaded that's showing the past 12 hours in the enhanced infrared model format. And I really wish I could see the past week's worth of radar. Like, why don't they have one website that lets you do that? That just lets you look at historic radar projections for long periods of time, so you can actually, maybe learn and observe the weather patterns for yourself. You might notice the Earth was flat, but what other drawbacks could there possibly be? Yes, this storm is 100% related to the recent eclipse. But to explain that, you'd have to understand who I was. Because I am the relationship between this storm and that eclipse. Just like I'm the relationship between a lot of things that have been happening lately. Sorry. Worth a snap. This is true, Joey. So, yes, I would like a archived weather thing. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. The more I try to explain it in the English language, the less effective this is going to be. So, I'm sure we'll see that in a couple of months. But it's not going to do me any good right now. Essentially, what I do with the weather is communicate. Right now, I'm communicating my impatience. This is also the result of well, actually, it's the final culmination of a vision I had back in 2004, which included my sister's death and a warning of my father that she would die in exactly 2 years. And my sister died in exactly 2 years. And it also included the Boston bombing. Way ahead of time from where it would have been useful. But, yeah. Anyways. So, what I was getting around to is, for the past couple of days, I have actually slept and stopped being human in the way I try to protest events and affect change. It was 2006 when she died. 2004 was the prophecy. And she was my oldest sister who used to like take care of me when I was little. Like at the age when most people depended on their mommy, I looked for Michelle. She was 10 years older than me. And just a couple of months ago, my mom died. Speaking of which. But yeah, it's all very fateful and very related. I have plans for what to do about that eventually. But what I had set out for humanity was a path in which they could gain immortality themselves by repenting of all their past inequities. And all they needed to do this was to learn the truth of the enemy that was surrounding them. That proved itself too much to ask. And now we have Donald Trump. And for a while I've been unsure what to do about that, trying to rely on the very men who voted me out 500 years ago to somehow display competence. I've been very disappointed. And the final stage of this dream that I had in 2004, a storm that was on what I call the warpath, that is, going below Cuba, same path as Gilbert and stuff like that. Let's just say if Trump is the Antichrist, I'm his worst enemy. So in this vision, an upper level low, much like you saw 3 days ago in that spot, basically opened up its banding in just the right time for a tropical storm that was expected to develop into a hurricane, was crossing the Yucatan and merged together and became one giant fucking superstorm. And it hit Corpus Christi, which that looks like it's about to do. Then it went back out to sea, jogged like south, re-strengthened, and came and made like this weird skirting blow across the entire Gulf Coast without losing strength. And I don't want to attribute this to the prophecy, but my thoughts, my interpretation, my fears even afterwards, is that this storm is going to be so big it's not going to go away. And what we're essentially going to wind up with is a banded spot here on Earth. I don't know how long it's going to last, but this thing could really grow out of control. Because, generally speaking, okay, there's always a possibility that an upper level low is going to merge with a lower level low. Okay, a lower level low being a tropical storm or a hurricane, right? Upper level low being one of those big swirls in the clouds that you see usually coming down from the north. Usually, up, like we'll see them come in on the Pacific, and then we'll see like that one up there in the far right corner over here. That's an upper level low spinning around up there. So imagine the first recall in previous storms that you've seen how the upper level shearing effect is usually the saving grace. Usually the upper level shearing effect is what comes down and tears a storm apart after it makes landfall, or keeps a storm from strengthening or hitting us to begin with. Okay. Now, imagine for a sec inside that big rotational area over there, up off of Maine and like the whole North Atlantic. See how it's all rotating like that? That's an upper level system. Now, imagine if a hurricane was right in the middle of one of those. It wouldn't experience much of the shear that we usually rely on to weaken it. And if a couple of days passed in which the opposite spin of the upper level low turned into an intensification of the banding effect of the storm that it was spinning the opposite direction inside of it, what you would have is it's fucking crazy. What you would have is basically what happens supposedly on the storms in the gas planet models. So, as far as knowledge of prophecy goes, Mr. Feinbros, feel free to give us your real name. I do prefer informal names around here. Helps me keep you in my prayers and whatnot. But, prophecies, as far as this goes, this is stuff that I've been mentioning for 2.5 years now on YouTube and for, since it happened on Facebook. The prophecies that this channel in general centers around can be found, in the books Genesis through Revelation. Okay, and I have indeed added to those prophecies while pointing out how most of them have already happened, and you can trace that in history, while also on this channel, really, prophecy isn't the word. What I've done here is I've given warnings, and then I've said what I was going to cause to happen should those warnings be disobeyed. Okay? So if you want to look at it from a prophetic perspective, you would find on this channel that I have given many prophecies and that they have all came true. But if you actually get to know me and get to see what I've actually been trying to accomplish here, you understand that there is a specific lesson I've been trying to teach all of humanity, and that lesson is the lesson that will save all of your souls and indeed keep you from suffering from, death and disease and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, there's this whole army of Satan thing. They don't like me very much. They've been trying to keep my broadcasts a secret, been trying to suppress the views on my channels and whatnot. Basically been defrauding me financially too. And in general, the lesson was regarding the organized conspiracy to create and maintain a patriarchal society. Okay, that is one that not only dominates women, but that enslaves children and treats... it's basically a Nietzschean philosophy as a societal model. That the superior should dominate, and that superiority should be proven in the way that the superior claimed to be superior. So superiority isn't a result of, arts or contributions or talents or anything like that. It's just, how shitty can you be and dominate other people? Oh, they're not shitty, so they didn't see it coming, so we must be better than them. That's the fucking way these people think. Okay? That's the way Russians and the whole horde thinks. They confuse bullshit with God's gifts. It's much more sinister than some myth about a master race. Okay? There were two master races, the angels and the dragons. The sons of Orion have nothing to do with that. Okay? Orion is simply is just another pre-incarnate god of war, who is Mars, who is Vladimir Putin these days. Okay, welcome to the channel. Please introduce yourself. You need to come back here more often. People don't even mention Russians. Yeah, I've been basically bitching out what I call the Shilliverse for the past 2.5 years here on YouTube, because they got all these fucking stupid fucking Illuminati conspiracies. Oh, it's the Freemasons. Oh, it's the Rothschilds. And they'll even go so far as to mention the Khazars without mentioning Russia. The one who sent them to Germany to both foment the false idea of the Aryan master race, which, by the way, those are called Turkish people. Like, seriously, the fucking Aryans are the Turkics. Like, they look like Arabs, but they have blue eyes. That's what an Aryan is. They're like Chechens. But we think of Aryan, and we're actually picturing the tribe of Benjamin and Ephraim. Those are Anglicans. It's Anglican, not Aryan. Completely fucking different. The Khazars stole Anglican blood and created a line that is known in conspiracy world as the Anunnaki types. But I think the easiest way to understand what you see on YouTube and what Russia really is simply by deciphering what the meaning of the word nod is. It doesn't mean wandering, it means north. Okay, it means the center, back in the old map, because in the old map, right where the Caucasus Mountains are, right where, the Ark landed, was the center of reality, was the center of Earth, the flat plane, okay? Now, I'm not a flat earther. I don't think flat Earth is the only possible model. Flat Earth is spiritual reality. Ball Earth is physical reality. There's a difference, and one can extremely advance their psyche and evolve spiritually by understanding this. So, the most ridiculous thing about all these conspiracies is that they exclude Russia, and that includes flat Earth. Because even if you don't use the old map, if you use the new maps, what's in the middle? Anyways, so I suppose, speaking of Russia, I will finally conclude my point from earlier, which is that while I was taking my very wonderful, satisfying nap earlier, it looks like Rachel Maddow has done me right once again. So, yesterday, which is pretty cool, I might even go and find that one after this one. Yesterday, Rachel Maddow had I think she'd been contacted by a Republican that I've been talking to lately. Well, until my Twitter completely crashed. I was kind of bullshitting with this guy and trying to get him to check out the channel and whatnot. And then Rachel opens up with the guy, and in reference mentions something about the guy that me and the guy had just discussed. Sense of humor. And then the subject matter proceeded to discuss something I've been discussing the past couple of broadcasts, the dossier. And, well, my point being that the dossier is kind of put there for a specific reason, and it's been providing more cover for Donald Trump, and we need to focus on why it's been put there in order to detract from that tactical standpoint in dealing with it. So, I mean, it should be pretty obvious. The whole thing about the hookers pissing on the bed, I'm not saying it's not true, but something like that would be, considered salacious and would be left out of any document that you were trying to use as a credible political clout mechanism. Okay? So, basically, you got a whole sheet worth of nails in the coffin. Okay? And then you have like an overgrown grapefruit. This could also hold down the lid of a coffin, but it's really unnecessary. It's kind of weird, And if you squeeze it, you get squirted. Never mind. So, I'm going to go ahead and put tonight's Rachel Maddow report on, and then I guess I'll go ahead and find last night's, because I don't think, because we wound up doing stuff on here, and although I think I might have played it on the Extremely Long broadcast earlier, Joey. Although I think I probably showed the one from in that long broadcast after the video gaming earlier, I'd basically fallen asleep on like on the couch while just watching news with everybody. So yeah, I'll put that on, and I'm gonna shut the fuck up now. So, here goes nothing. Get this little sucker out the way. In fact, that's a bit out of date, so I'll go ahead and just remove that. Okay. I have a chatish window and a TV window and stuff in place. And crazy echoing microphone check. Crazy echoing microphone check 2. Microphone should now fade my voice. Faded voice check.
And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Big show tonight.
You're welcome.
There's a lot going on. We are keeping an eye out tonight on whether the president might make an extraordinary and early use of the pardon power to pardon convicted former Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio tonight. We've been getting mixed messages on that. The White House saying today that we don't expect an announcement about that soon, but we're also told that the paperwork has been prepared already and the talking points have been distributed to White House surrogates in terms of how they should talk about that when it happens. So the White House doesn't always speak officially for the president in terms of when he's going to do something and what. So we've got eyes on that tonight. That would obviously be a major national controversy if the president decides to do that. We've also got news tonight about a corruption scandal having to do with the new administration that may be getting pursued now by an unlikely investigator. This is a very interesting story. We've got that coming up exclusively tonight. We've got that just in a couple minutes. We also got a couple of a pair of national security stories tonight, one of which may raise your spirits in a way, and one which probably will flip your stomach over several times. So there's a lot going on. But I want to start with something different. Before we get to that news tonight, I want to start with something a little off the path. Something that, as far as I can tell, is basically an open question. And that is how I am raising it here on the air tonight. I want to basically explain this thing that we as a country have all been able to figure out recently, within the last couple of days, because of good new investigative reporting that's been done by the New York Times. And the reason I want to talk about this part of it here is basically to plant a flag on this point, to clarify this thing that we've just learned, basically to raise a flag as to whether the open question, I think, that is now raised can be answered. So I admit this is a little bit weird, but bear with me. I think it is worth it. All right. Here's the story. A few years ago, a very wealthy Russian lawmaker, a billionaire who was a Russian lawmaker, he fled his country. He left Russia and he came to the United States because he said he feared for his life. He said a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, a Russian oligarch very close to Putin, had confiscated billions of dollars from him. And when he sued that oligarch to get back his billions of dollars, the backlash was swift and scary. He says he was stripped of his immunity as a member of parliament. He was then charged with fraud, what he says were trumped-up fraud charges. He says he was then quickly put on Russia's most wanted list. He said he was fearing for his life when he fled to the United States. And he started looking into the possibility of trying to get asylum here in the United States. He also continued to press his legal case against the Putin-linked oligarch who he claimed had stolen all those billions of dollars from him. And, you know, if you've got enough juice and enough connections to steal billions of dollars from someone in Russia, naturally, you don't take kindly to somebody pursuing you in court for that. So the Putin-connected oligarch who's accused of stealing billions of dollars from this Russian lawmaker, the oligarch got to work, doing everything he could to mess with this guy who he'd supposedly stolen all this money from, to mess with this fugitive Russian lawmaker who was pressing this legal case against him. Including, he mounted a campaign, a multifaceted campaign, to try to block that fugitive lawmaker guy from getting asylum in the United States. And in order to accomplish that objective, he hired a very special kind of DC operative. He hired a naturalized U.S. citizen, originally from Russia, a guy with, we now know, extensive ties to Russian intelligence. And he was well known for being an effective pro-Putin, pro-Kremlin fixer and lobbyist in Washington, D.C. That Russian-born DC fixer was hired to run basically a smear campaign against the Russian lawmaker who fled to the United States. This fixer guy got hired to do the work. He did the work. When it came time to get paid for the work, the fixer guy later admitted in court that the way he got paid for this job was that he was handed bags of $100 bills, $70,000 or $80,000 at a time, in a bag. Nice work if you can get it. Now, around the same time, the fugitive Russian lawmaker is both trying to get asylum in the United States. He's trying to defend himself from this cash money smear campaign that's being paid for by the guy who he says stole all his money back in Russia. And he's still pursuing his legal case against that guy to try to get all his money back. And around the time that this smear campaign was starting up against him, led by this Russian-born DC fixer guy, his lawyers who were working on his original case against the oligarch guy, their computers got hacked. The lawyers were based in London. They were sent suspicious emails that contained spyware, malware. It was meant to infiltrate their computers. Luckily, the infection emails looked suspicious enough to the lawyers that they called in help and they took steps to protect themselves. They tried first to find out who had come after them in that way. They wanted to find out who had tried to infect their email and access their servers to steal documents. So they hired forensic experts who came in and did something I didn't really realize you could do, but apparently you can. The forensic experts they hired basically activated the malware that had been sent to these lawyers, but then they fed traceable documents into the spyware. It would be like if you were able to put a GPS tracker on your stolen car, so you could follow your stolen car to the chop shop where they were going to cut it up for parts, right? Then you could not just bust the thieves who stole your car, you could bust the whole car thieving operation. So they put these traceable documents on the lawyers' computers, then they traced them as the malware in the lawyers' computers stole the documents, and when those traceable documents were opened up, the forensic experts could see where they were. And wouldn't you know it, where those documents got opened was on computers at the company of the Putin-connected oligarch who these lawyers were pursuing in court, and who was funding that smear campaign against their client back in the United States.
That's awesome.
So that was 2011. Interesting case. Then it happened again. A couple of years later, that Russian-born, Kremlin-friendly DC fixer with ties to Russian intelligence, the guy who ran the smear campaign for the Russian oligarch that apparently included this sophisticated hacking and stealing operation on the guy's lawyers' computers, that same fixer guy in DC turned up working for another Russian oligarch close to Vladimir Putin. This was in 2013. This new oligarch connected to Putin, he owned a mining company that was headquartered in Europe. And he hired the Russian-born DC fixer guy to go after a rival company in his industry. He hired the fixer guy to go after a mining company called IMR, which is headquartered in Switzerland. And sure enough, they got hacked too, badly. This time it worked. The company's internal documents got hacked. They got stolen off the company's servers, and then they turned up, leaked far and wide to try to cause maximum damage to IMR. Now, IMR did fight back. They sued the company of this Putin-connected Russian oligarch who they were up against in this business dispute. They sued his company, and they also sued the Russian-born DC fixer guy who the oligarch had hired to manage his dispute with IMR. They sued them. They sued them for computer espionage. An investigator working for the Swiss mining company for IMR testified in court that he followed the DC fixer guy to a coffee shop in London while he was investigating this computer espionage. He says he saw the DC fixer guy sit down with a person who appeared to be his client in this matter involving IMR. The investigator testified that he actually heard the fixer guy in that coffee shop explain to his client that his team had successfully hacked into the computers at IMR. The investigator testified that he then saw the DC fixer guy hand over a thumb drive at the coffee shop that he said, a thumb drive he said that contained the documents that had been stolen from IMR. The documents that ended up getting leaked all over the place to try to hurt IMR's business standing in this dispute with the Russian oligarch who had hired the fixer. Okay, so both of those hacking cases had been previously reported. They were interesting, like, business crime stories, right? But this week, the New York Times figured out that there's a crucial link between both of those hacking stories. That fixer guy, this DC fixer, this Soviet-born DC fixer with extensive Russian intelligence ties, in both of these instances, he was the guy hired by Putin-connected oligarchs for both of these campaigns. And in both of these campaigns, opponents of the oligarchs who were paying him found themselves subjected to sophisticated hacking attacks designed to break into their computers, steal documents off their computer servers, and then use those documents against them in these disputes. The fixer guy in DC is in the middle of both of those cases. And the MO looks very much the same in both of those cases. And his name is Rinat Akhmetshin. And if that name is familiar, it's because we now know that he was one of the people who went to that now famous meeting at Trump Tower last June with Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner and the Trump campaign chair, Paul Manafort, and a Kremlin-connected lawyer who had been sold to the Trump campaign as someone who could deliver damaging information from the Russian government about Hillary Clinton. Now, what was Rinat Akhmetshin doing at that meeting? Rinat Akhmetshin's explanation for what he was doing at that meeting, all these weeks later, is still funny. He maintains that he just happened to be having lunch that day with the Kremlin-connected lawyer, and she spontaneously, like almost as a lark, invited him to come along, and so he went, having no idea where he was going or why. He doesn't even live in New York. But miraculously, there he was, having a BLT or whatever, minding his own business, when whoops, he ends up invited into a meeting starting right then inside the executive suite at Trump Tower with the president's son and the president's son-in-law and the guy who's running the Trump for President campaign. Hey, Rinat, why don't you come along? More the merrier, it'll be fun. Have you met these guys? So no, we don't have any idea what he was really doing there, but we do know more now about his particular expertise, what he appears to be good at, what kind of services he has been able to offer the people who he has worked for over the years. I mean, there's no reason to think that Rinat Akhmetshin is the actual hacker. He's not the Cheeto-eating drone at a computer terminal in St. Petersburg who's figuring out the code, right, for the malware. No, I mean, what we know he does, or what he appears to have done in the past for his clients, is that he's the guy who makes arrangements about this stuff. He's the guy who makes arrangements for targeted hacking to happen and for the material obtained by targeted hacking to be used to maximum benefit for his clients. He's what the time has also now added to our understanding of this part of the case is all the different ways in which Rinat Akhmetshin appears to be connected to Russian intelligence. When the deputy head of Russian intelligence had to come to Washington to do a dog and pony show a few years ago about some joint U.S.-Russian policy effort, the guy who shepherded him around Washington and went to all his events with him was our friend, the DC fixer, Rinat Akhmetshin, the deputy head of Russian intelligence. Americans who came across him during his work in DC over the years say he openly alluded to his own past involvement with Russian intelligence. Quote, he did not make it a secret. Over the years, he told journalists quite openly that he had worked with Russian military counterintelligence. A member of the National Security Council under George W. Bush says he came across Rinat Akhmetshin frequently in Washington, D.C. He tells the Times, quote, he would boast about his ties and experience in Soviet intelligence and counterintelligence. And Of course, there's the fact that he ran operation after operation for oligarchs close to Vladimir Putin, who hired him to manage their business and financial disputes with people who soon found themselves subject to hacking attacks designed to infiltrate their computers and steal their stuff. So their stuff could be used against them in those disputes. Does this sound familiar? So that guy turns up at that Trump Tower meeting, just passing by. But that meeting on June 9th of last year, there's a couple of things that are very interesting about it. Number one, and I don't know how to explain this at all, but that meeting ended up being very closely held. There were a lot of people in that meeting. There were a lot of Russians in that meeting, and there was a Trump, a Kushner, and a Manafort in that meeting too. It was a big meeting involving a lot of people, but it was quite closely held. Not many people knew about it for a long time. We have reason to believe that Special Counsel Robert Mueller and his team of investigators, they don't appear to have figured out about that meeting on their own. All indications are that Robert Mueller's team only started looking into that Trump Tower meeting and what happened there after it was reported in the New York Times. How come they didn't know about it? Also, former MI6 agent Christopher Steele, with everything he figured out for the Trump-Russia dossier that's now back at the center of the scandal, in his reporting, his dossier that he created for Fusion GPS, he never mentioned the Trump Tower meeting. It's not in the dossier. He seems to have figured out a lot of other stuff. We also now know, so that's interesting, that it seems to have stayed under the radar for so long, which is unusual given the number of people in that meeting and who they were. But we also now know that by the time that meeting happened on June 9th, the DNC, the Democratic Party, and the Clinton campaign had already been hacked by Russian hackers. And so now, if you put the timeline back together with what we know now, you can now see that once the Democrats had had their servers hacked and all their documents stolen, that's when the senior leadership of the Trump campaign took this meeting with a guy who has extensive known experience in exactly that kind of hacking. This guy who has...
The Trump Tower meeting was a celebration.
Years of experiencing arranging the stealing of and weaponizing of hacked information for Russian political purposes. The day after the Trump Tower meeting, the weekend of June 10th and 11th, that's when the DNC and their IT consultants finally kicked out the Russian hackers that had been rooting around in their system for months. We still don't know exactly why they did it at that specific moment, except we know that at the time they were preparing to go public with what had happened to them. And indeed, the following week, it went public. That's when we all learned for the first time that the Russians had hacked the DNC's servers. We learned that the following week when the Washington Post reported on it. The day after that story broke.
And just for the record,
I was on here basically saying that if people don't start at least acknowledging how hard Russia is trying to steal this election, I'm just gonna have like earthquakes and floods just fucking destroy everything. And some earthquakes and floods happen, and then the DNC decided to release that, which is, you know, it all goes back to my saying of how if people would just fucking listen to me to begin with, they would spare themselves a whole lot of trouble. I'm sorry for knowing better than my children, you know, but that's what a parent's job is.
The Russians started leaking some of what they had hacked out of the DNC through Guccifer 2.0 and then DC leaks. And then the full weaponization of that hacked information started the following month, in July, with the WikiLeaks stuff, timed perfectly and expertly to coincide with the start of the Democratic National Convention. Now we know that about who was in that meeting, and now we know what we know about that time. So here's my question. Now that we know more about who was in the room with the Trump campaign, in that interim period between when the Democratic Party was hacked and when the Russians started turning the product of that hack back at the U.S. election and the U.S. media to help Trump and hurt Clinton, now that we know that a Russia-born DC fixer who apparently specialized in that kind of work was meeting with the upper echelon echelons of the Trump campaign right then. How can we tell if there's a connection? Is there a connection between this operative being at that Trump Tower meeting, that specific expertise under his belt? Is there a connection between that and the Russian attack on the DNC and the Clinton campaign, and how the documents hacked out of the Clinton campaign and the DNC got repurposed into the campaign to hurt Hillary Clinton? Does Rinat Akhmetshin's proximity to these previous hacking cases map technically with what happened at the DNC last year in terms of timing, in terms of tactics, in terms of just the way that operation ran? Is it the same fingerprints on all three? Because we're pretty sure that he's associated with the first two, and we know about the third one, and it really looks the same. Are the fingerprints the same on all three? Rinat Akhmetshin would not answer our questions when we reached out to him for this story. But you know what? All of this should be answerable. I mean, certainly by trained investigators, but I'm guessing even in open source research and journalistic work here. So there's a whole bunch of news to get to tonight, and we're going to get to it now. But just stick a pin in this story, in that meeting, in that time frame, and specifically into that guy. Who's going to be the first to figure this part out?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click.
Can you, was I just on mute again? I think I was just on mute. I was just saying, sorry for the horrible background I have here. I use the back of my couch as a shelf. Sketch bags and a thing of snacks there. But anyways, just wow. That's all I was saying. I almost want to watch that whole thing again, just to absorb that whole storyline really well. That's something else, man. I really, I've been thinking a lot lately. Joey, maybe you can help me out with this, about making a playlist, a new playlist, and just call it Quickies, or TLB Quickies. And put those forward-facing camera videos that I take every now and again of the little proofs I catch. Yeah, Rachel's awesome. Like, I don't know, like, what her life is like, but like, I want her to be blessed in every way. Like, Rachel's been doing damn good work for a long time. But it's funny, I was actually, well, let me finish my thought before I go into that story. Let me intersect my own tangent there. Alright, so the the one, if you could find it, from 4 months ago that talks about ongoing hacking activity in the U.S. And the one that also talks about, or the one with the guy that got interviewed and talks about the harassment and intimidation of Democratic operatives. And then, you know, like a bunch of my small videos that prove it. Okay? Just like a playlist called TLB Quickies. Or just, how about Reality 101? Yeah. Reality 101 playlist. And I want just select Rachel Maddow videos and my short videos of the forward-facing camera ones that are really good. Just the few that are really good. There's a few that what they show is, you know, I mean, granted, I'm only using the PlayStation Network, but how many people have PS3s? Like, I can't be the only one, you know? Like, there's got to be a lot of people doing this, otherwise they wouldn't have the fucking app for it and constantly update it and shit like that. So there's at least, I mean, I could only do guesstimate market analysis and then user statistic analysis. But worldwide, there's probably 3 million people who use PlayStation 3 YouTube app for news. Okay? Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a pretty decent chunk of people, especially when it comes down to how you can use not demography, but like technical usage data. Like, okay, for instance, you go into a swing district or a given choice of swing districts, and then you take like what type of internet service they have, what kind of cable service they have. Do they only have one cable provider? Is it an area in which people are more likely to seek alternative app type news sources like YouTube? Okay, for instance, me. I live out in the country. Y'all saw earlier what it's like for me to try to get a fucking antenna signal from there in town. Okay? It don't work too well. Excuse me. I needed coffee. So, out here in the country, I use YouTube because it's the easiest way for me to get TV news. If I wanted to have internet and cable television, I would be paying probably $150 a month. Okay? I have cable, and I have like the little Amazon-y type TV little accounts, right? I'm not going to tell you what accounts I have, but I got a few of them. Okay. So I use that. I use monthly subscription services, and I use internet access. My internet access costs me like $80 a month. Okay, so I don't pay for cable. I use the YouTube. I live out in the country. It just makes more sense, you know? It just makes more sense. So, something so easy and logical, I'd assume that could be used as data, okay? And that data clearly can be used strategically to affect information warfare, or information isolationism, okay, which is a tactic of information warfare. So, for instance, if I go on here, and I'll just show you right now. How about I do that? I'll show you right now. How about that shit? Hi. So if I take the little category thing up at the top, first of all, since the protests have been happening, live used to be like right there, and you could see it. Now you have to scroll over that far. You have to go past, let's see, what's the last one? Comedy is visible. You have to get comedy, then news, and sports, then technology, then the most popular thing on YouTube, live streaming. Ain't that shitty? So then, you come down here, you'll never see me on here. I can be hatching out fucking clownfish, percula clownfish, be the only one in the world doing it. I mean, I'm not talking like including hatcheries. I'm the only independent person on YouTube that I know of who breeds fucking true perculas. A few people breed Ocellus. I breed true perculas. They're more difficult. Meh. But, you know, I do a lot of very unique things on this channel. And, you know, we're not going to see me right now. We're just not. I'm never on here. Even if you subscribe to this channel, you're going to have to check in the morning and in the evening to catch my live streams. Because even if you click the notification bell, you're not going to get notified of when I upload or when I go live. It just doesn't happen. Okay? Obviously, this isn't covered under technology. Mobile, no, never there. Gaming, mobile, recent, upcoming, no news. If they have news, let's see, live now, alright, we have trumpet news. And they're covering the hurricane. We have PTC news. I have no fucking idea what that is. Is like crazy neo-Nazi shit that shouldn't even be allowed on the fucking airwaves. And yeah, that's all you fucking people are, is neo-Nazis. You know why you're neo-Nazis? Because you're brainwashed by Russia into destroying your own country through insanity and racism. That's what a Nazi was. They were somebody brainwashed by Russia into doing crazy racist shit and destroying their own country. That's what Trumpists are. They're Nazis, all of them. They're brainwashed by Russia into doing crazy racist shit that destroys their own country. That's what a Nazi was. What you don't realize is that there were fucking black Nazis. Like, you kids are all so kept in the dark. I mean, that's all it is. It's not your fault you're stupid, but you're fucking stupid. You're made to be stupid. Like, I mean, like they practically have all of your brains in jars soaking in vinegar right now. Okay, just soft. So, What you usually find on Live Now, or especially during the day, there's India. Oh, I'm criticizing YouTube, and all my droppers, all my viewers have dropped. Oh, look, that's one. About that. So I guess either action has been taken, or I'm thinking more than likely the little control bots, they're monitored. You know, like the people watching them were starting to get worried that, oh yeah, I was proving how full of shit this system was, and how if there's any sort of moral justification that they've been preaching to you trolls, they're lying to you. You don't get to conquer someone for the reasons that you made up about them, okay? They've lied to you and told you things about us to make you hate us, and they're the ones who are guilty of all of them. That makes you on the wrong side. But anyways, so during the day, you come on here on the live bits, and under that now section, it'll have, look, Russians on a beach. Oh boy. On the live section, it'll have Fox News, CNN, Fox News, CNN, Alex Jones, and the Young Turks, and then Real News Now, Sky News, some random shill shit. But you can go and you can search MSNBC live stream, and you can find clickbait. See that says MSNBC Live? You think it's MSNBC?
In a survey of 40,000 people, Airwick was voted Product of the Year in air care.
Nice for them.
The White House wants no one.
Oh my God, it's actual MSNBC. Oh. This is the first time I've been proven wrong on some shit like this. Okay. Okay. See the guy's face, right? Wow, that's fucking crazy. You don't ever see that. And this one actually says the channel name is Fox Stream. Very interesting. Okay, so next, let's see if
Notions of being interested, and people would jump on it.
apparently 3 a.m. is like the time of day where the MSNBC streams actually work. How about that? Oh, there, Fox News. Just when I thought I was getting happy. All right. That doesn't have a clickbait icon. Oh wow! So 3 a.m. is actual MSNBC broadcast time. Look at me getting proven wrong. Huh. I wonder if that has anything to do with the sudden intervention of YouTube. They have a weird level, a very weird level of control is going on behind the scenes. You can certainly find on previous videos where I've proven this claim, over and over again. Very interesting. Oh, and look, the view count's back up. Did my stream go dark or something, Joey? Very interesting. So earlier today, I did the same exact search. And these things popped up, and they all just had CNN playing. And I've done that on live streams. I've done that on, I think, a clip video or two. Also, Joey, anytime you want to, like, clip a small part of a video that I've done or whatever, even like a little compilation video of stuff that's been said on this channel, like, long ago, before it happened, I think that'd be another good thing to include in that playlist. Upload those and put them on the playlist. And that way, anybody who wants to catch up and support the channel at the same time, they can just put that Reality 101 playlist on there. Put it on autoplay and chillax and leave it running. Maybe that'll help out our view count and our bottom line. Which, oh, wait. Speaking of the bottom line, we are now actually up to, if I can get it to show up, $19.08. I know that's backwards, but you can still see it's $19. Your estimated revenue. That's every 28 days. 3,000 subscribers, well over 1 million views, you know, that we know of. Not that they're actually showing, but, you know, AdSense. It's been a year since AdSense told me I had 1 million views. YouTube. Apparently YouTube doesn't know how many views it's telling AdSense I have. Even though I had the YouTube channel longer than I had AdSense, so I should have more views on YouTube than I had on AdSense. But, you know, they're robbing me in a very legally actionable way. And, oh, I can't wait till they get the shit suit out of them. Oh, man. Like, people at Google are going to jail. That's what happens when you commit fucking terrorist acts. Anyways. Did it never occur to you fucking trolls that that's what you're doing? Information warfare is still warfare. You're committing war acts. In fact, in many ways, you're committing war crimes. Certainly accessory to war crimes. Yeah, I could definitely use 10 million in advertising on this channel. I'm sure the reason why they haven't deleted my channel like they've done to other people is the fact that they know one day I'm gonna win. One day the whole fucking world is gonna know who I am. And this channel is going to make them a whole lot of money. The ones that aren't in jail. See, there you've kind of dug yourself a hole, haven't you? I'm liking this whole transparency thing. Oh, look, look, look. I am the Alpha and the Omega. Okay. Clearly having way too much fun with that. Alright. There. So, let me see here. Fuck is his name? Mattis. I couldn't think of his name last night or yesterday. Kelly, Masterson, and Mattis. The three pillars of our fucking civilization right now. Oh boy, three generals. So, Typhoon NATO? Or Typhoon Hato? Oh, Hato. I'm guessing that was more than 1,000. Well, look at me with autoplay on now. Sorry about the echo just then. One mic at a time, dumbass. One mic at a time. Alright, I'm just going to go back to the MSNBC channel if it'll show up. Oh, apparently it's not going to be in this list. What's Pacman up to? Do Northeast liberals even understand Middle America, I'm guessing? No, not at all. Not at all.
We've got a voicemail.
You especially don't understand Middle American Democrats, which, by the way, are most of the Democrats. Like, I mean, there's a lot of, like, for instance, white guys who were scared enough of Islam to vote for Trump. They're out there here and there. Kept ignorant by CNN, mostly. And the too little, too late effort. As much as I love Rachel Maddow, it was too little, too late. And let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. Perfect example. Before I get the latest MSNBC stuff. Here we have Malcolm Nance on Rachel Maddow in 2011, May 5th. Okay?
Osama bin Laden
Laden's 1996 declaration of war against the United States was titled Declaration of War Against the Americans Occupying the Land of the Two Holy Places. A typically awkward and hard to remember title, right? Not just because of how florid classical Arabic can sound when it's translated to English, but also because Osama bin Laden had such a bee in his bonnet about where he was from. When he says the land of the two holy places, what he's talking about is Saudi Arabia. But he won't say that because he's so offended that Saudi Arabia would let there be U.S. troops stationed there that he won't say the name of his home country. He won't say Saudi Arabia. Is that a petulant and childish tactic? Yes. So was renaming French fries. But that's folks. That's the kind of thing people do. But when Osama bin Laden declared war on the United States, again, his...
The land of the two holy places, like Gog and Magog?
stated reason for doing so was American troops in Saudi Arabia. After 9/11, the George W. Bush administration did in fact pull U.S. troops out of Saudi Arabia. But by then, of course, the U.S. had already put troops into two other Muslim countries, our wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So then those wars, as well as U.S. support for Israel, became the new things that bin Laden and al-Qaeda harped on in their statements about what al-Qaeda was doing and why. They would justify their terrorist tactics with cockamamie pseudo-theology and by saying that terrorist tactics were strategically sound. Quoting bin Laden from 2004, "We are continuing this policy in bleeding America to the point of bankruptcy." He said,
interesting. Wasn't that the Soviet Union's objective? Wasn't that their objective stated by Brezhnev in his novel regarding using Islamic extremism as a replacement tactic to the Cold War era tactics? Huh. You think Osama bin Laden's ever been to Russia? No, you think he's never been to Russia. It's been omitted from your consciousness, the possibility that he could have ever been to Russia. Interesting, isn't it? So, let me just debunk that idea for a second. If you are on international no-fly lists as of 1992 and could not fly from Saudi Arabia back and forth to Afghanistan or from Africa, from the other Al-Qaeda areas to Afghanistan, would you take a boat? You know, a person that's mostly been living in the desert, riding camels, that kind of thing. Tall guy, dialysis machine. Dialysis machines don't work very well on boats. Also, you know, you have to deal with fake identities. Your boats are trackable, traceable. One of the two. A boat is kind of like a sitting duck, only it's, you know, it's a sitting boat, isn't it? And once again, you know, my computer's lagging. Viewers will experience dropped frames, it's telling me right now. And the view count just dropped down to 1 again. Just gonna stop working while I'm talking about this. Very interesting, isn't it? So, where does one go if one wants to go from Afghanistan to the rest of the world? And one cannot travel, and Osama bin Laden definitely could not travel, much like Islamic State could not travel through Iran. Well, Iran has on one side of it Russia, and on the other side of it, it has the fucking Persian Gulf, doesn't it? So there's no way around Iran to Afghanistan unless you go through Russia. What all the trolls need to realize, especially if they're Christians or atheists and anyone besides an Islamic extremist, is that your government is behind Islamic extremism. You can accuse the CIA, you can accuse John McCain and all these fucking people all you want. But the lines in the sand don't listen to propaganda. You can't get around them, just like you can't get around Iran without going through Russia. And you can't get a motivation. You can't get a tactical capability. You can't get 9/11 without seeing the connection between bin Laden, Russia, and Donald Trump. But, you know, it was 2011 that I started to wonder what became of the land of Nod, and I started to see that they were bullshitting all of you. And in 2011, this is where you snowflakes all were.
And Al-Qaeda found it easy to provoke and bait this administration, talking about the Bush administration in 2004. Quote, all that we have to do is send 2 mujahideen to the furthest point east to raise a piece of cloth on which is written Al-Qaeda in order to make generals race there to cause America to suffer human, economic, and political losses without their achieving anything of note. Osama bin Laden in his own terms. This is totally central to what they thought they were doing and how they thought they would win. They believed that our generals racing eastward across the globe to put American military forces in Muslim countries, they believed that was their most marketable grievance. Whether it was U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or U.S. wars in Iraq or Afghanistan, resentment of U.S. military presence in Muslim countries was what bin Laden thought earned Al-Qaeda the most popular support. Their uninterrupted supply of willing suicide bombers, the continued appeal of their overall Al-Qaeda message, despite widespread revulsion at Al-Qaeda tactics. That's how they thought they would win. They would channel Muslim pride into hatred of the U.S., into uncompromising rejection of all things U.S., rejection of democracy itself as a Western construct, and they would get Muslim countries to institute strict religious rule instead. That was their big idea. That's how they planned to win. They did not win. They did not win. They did not win. The Muslim world is rising up against their lousy U.S. allied despotic rulers, but they are rising up for democracy, not against it. The death of bin Laden is generating just about no reaction in the Middle East. The founder and the worldwide symbol of al-Qaeda was its founder, Osama bin Laden. The source of al-Qaeda's power was him, his vision, his money, his organizational prowess, his status, his visibility. He was key to al-Qaeda's strength. But the other source of their strength was what they believed was the appeal of the al-Qaeda core message, that Muslim self-determination, U.S. stop humiliating Muslims, U.S. out of the Middle East message. One source of al-Qaeda's strength is dead now. Bin Laden is dead. Is that enough to kill al-Qaeda? What about their message now? What about what they always believed was the other great source of their strength? Joining us now is Malcolm Nance, retired Naval Intelligence Officer, former Master Instructor and Chief of Training at the Navy's Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School, the SEER School. He's fluent in Arabic. He's now a consultant on counterterrorism and terrorism intelligence for the U.S. government. He's also author of the book An End to Al-Qaeda, Destroying bin Laden's Jihad and Restoring America's Honor. Malcolm, thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Good to see you again, Rachel.
Since we talked on Tuesday night, I have not been able to stop thinking about what you said about bin Laden's death being the nail in the coffin of Al-Qaeda. You really feel like him dying means that it's over for them. Can you explain why?
Well, it's pretty simple. We are really seeing right now the beginning of the end of the Al-Qaeda organization. And a lot of people will say, no, we have the possibility that there's going to be terrorist attacks in the future, that some of his followers are going to lash out, there's going to be vengeance. All of this is true, but that's not the central core of what we're dealing with. Al-Qaeda organization has lost the heart, the soul, and the charisma of their ideological leader. This is the man who created bin Ladenism. And bin Ladenism is a lot broader.
Oh?
A lot bigger than saying that we want to fight the United States and push them out. This is a man who was trying to invoke a clash of civilizations where he thought that as a mujahideen in Afghanistan, he defeated the Russians and destroyed communism. Now he was going to invoke Islam, to his variation of Islam, to destroy democracy. So with his death, that whole Islamic ideological underpinnings has been taken away. But as we've seen over the last few months, it has really been washed away through the Islamic democracy movement that sprung up throughout the Middle East. And those two things combined spell no future for the Al-Qaeda organization. Will they actually carry out operations? Quite possible. Will they be successful? In some occasions, they might be. But do they have a future in the Muslim world? Not anymore.
In terms of the American relationship to the Arab Spring, to the Muslim democracy movements that we are seeing in so many countries right now, I mean, as you say, nobody really thinks that terrorism is over now. But should the American construct of a war on terrorism, which we came up with after 9/11, should that construct be over now? Would that help further decimate Al-Qaeda's popular base of support?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be terrorism. Terrorism is just a hammer in the toolbox of people who have political dissatisfaction and who won't involve themselves in processes which are peaceful. So we're always going to have people that will choose that. Even in this country, we have people that choose that tactic. However, within the entire broad structure of the war on terrorism, well, in fact, the war on terrorism, the central character was Osama bin Laden. And he drove this mine. He was the one who really pushed us into, number one, by engineering an attack that killed 3,000 of our citizens, and then driving us into wars which he wanted. He wanted us to invade Afghanistan. He had no idea that we would gift him with an invasion of Iraq, and that killed 5,000 more of our service members and tens of thousands of Muslims. So with his death, unless someone who is more charismatic than him, who can carry out an attack of a greater magnitude than the 9/11 attack, who can prove that they can take his legacy and carry on his vision of a Salafist, neo-Salafist, new Islamic caliphate that will destroy democracy. This war is essentially starting to break down in all capacity. That group, they are on their way out.
In terms of the continuing threat of Al-Qaeda and groups like it and inspired by it, though, we think about figures like Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen. We think about the impact of groups like the Al-Qaeda groups in Yemen, places Al-Shabaab in Somalia and other places. When you look at groups like that, also some of the Pakistani groups, is the American orientation toward those groups a war orientation? Is war still the right construct?
Well, you're right. It is a war orientation. But what we've seen recently is that we know that bringing 150,000 men into a country doesn't necessarily stop terrorism. It kills a lot of people, gets a lot of bodies, but that doesn't necessarily stop the ire that it brings out your mere presence. In some places in Afghanistan.
How much clearer could it be that they just goaded us into bogging down our own forces? If you want to find the rest of that, it's got great reviews. For instance, Cheney Watch 1. CheneyWatch, and number 1, all one word. And apparently they've got an interesting little collection of media clips. I might have to go check them out later. And it looks like several archived Malcolm Nance interviews. Huh, very interesting. I would like to see just how ahead of the curve, or that's the left of it here, it says Malcolm Nance was ahead of the curve and still is on Russian hacking.
And then I realized my voice was so muffled. So anyways, Cheney Watch, CheneyWatch, all one word with the number 1 at the end. Got a very interesting collection of interviews. Most of them seem to be centered around Malcolm Nance and other counter-intel type investigations on the Democratic side. But what I wanted to check out was this one that says Russian hacking. Malcolm Nance was ahead of the curve and still is. I'd like to find out just how ahead of the curve he was.
I love doing videos on Malcolm Nance, and I am of the opinion that if Malcolm Nance had been a high-ranking employee of the Obama administration, that the whistle on the Russians.
Okay, so this is from December 30th, 2016.
Saying that the Russia sanctions, commenting on them, saying it's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things. Nevertheless, in the interest of our country and its great people, I will meet with the leaders of the intelligence community next week in order to be updated on the facts of this situation. Thank you.
Okay, and that just shows that Donald Trump really is paying no attention to this. This man should be taking security briefings every single day. Yet he wants to wait till next week on something as important as the Russians interfering with our political process. That just tells me that Putin, as I've indicated in the past, has got something on this guy, and he's in Vladimir Putin's pocket because he's trying to downplay this, where the majority of Americans think that this was very serious.
And this presidential executive order naming 4 operatives involved in placing sanctions on 2 Russian.
You know, this ain't telling me shit because he's uploading something from his DVR. So, anyways, here's an interesting channel I just found.
Espionage? We don't know, but it just.
This is called the Stephanie Miller Show. This is a YouTube channel I just found, and she's got less subscribers than me. With all that equipment, 5 people. How about that? I'm sure she'll surpass me in no time flat. She's actually showing a legitimate level of views. If they got all the equipment, they're probably putting in pay to promote. So they're all like either 400, 500 views or 1,000 views, 5,000 views. Some of them 8,000 and 9,000 views, 3,000, 3,000, something. Very interesting. But this is kind of an independent little radio type news show. It seems pretty interesting. So, last thing I want to do is go ahead and finish up by checking the actual, I'm on live still. Wanted to check the actual MSNBC channel and see if they uploaded anything else. Apparently a channel called Loretta has updated a Andrea Mitchell report or two. Really? Come on, man. There we go. I'll just use that key. Potential for a 2020 primary if Donald Trump actually lasts that long. Why do so many romanticize the Confederacy? Because they're closet racists. I know. I live here. I live in the middle of the Confederacy. People who, I mean, literally, they're closet racists. And then you have black people that get paid by them. And black people in the South, to a certain extent, there's a very thoroughly enforced no rat policy, which includes when basically people betray their own race for money. It's something that gets debated in the black community about the black community, and they don't let anybody else know, but it's something they're conflicted about. But overall, nobody rats people out when they sell out black people. That's why you have those black Trump supporters on CNN. That's why you have those black people in front of the fucking Confederate statues. They're getting paid. And the reason why other black people don't rat them out is because of the result of the centuries of oppression and whatnot. The whole idea of getting paid by white people to deceive other white people can be argued as a legitimate thing to do. So you don't go and rat somebody else out just because you got a slightly different perspective, you know? Anyway. Speaking of black people.
Welcome back. President Trump went after one
Barry.
of his favorite targets this morning, retweeting an image of himself. Perhaps you saw this. Eclipsing former President Obama on the heels of this week's eclipse. This is just 2 days after President Trump criticized Obama in his fiery rally in Phoenix.
There was a big problem. Barack Obama never said it took place because of radical Islamic terrorists. He never said that. What about race relations in the United States? Now, I have to say they were pretty bad under Barack Obama, that I can tell you.
Dating back to before he was a candidate, for years, in fact, Donald Trump was the one who
What the
gave
fuck
rise
is he
to
even
the
talking
birther
about?
movement, falsely questioning Obama's place of birth.
All I want to do is see this guy's birth certificate. If he weren't lying, why wouldn't he just solve it? And I wish he would, because if he doesn't, it's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics and in the history period. I think he's the worst president maybe in the history of our country. By the way, just a question. Did President Obama ever come to a jamboree?
Back with us, Connie Schultz, Philip Bump. Connie, I don't know if you have a degree in psychology, but what's going on here? And does Trump now put himself as Obama's peer by dint of the office he's achieved?
Brian, this is that man who is obsessed with his girlfriend's ex. And no matter how many times she tells him that she's over him, he keeps scouring social media for him. He keeps comparing himself to him to the point where she finally realizes he's right. He was a better guy. And the eclipse analogy, can we just carry that all the way through that metaphor, please? Because that means he's the darkness who's blocking Barack Obama, but just for a short period of time, and then the sunlight comes back out. He didn't even finish the frame. I don't know what else to make of this. It is an absolute obsession with Donald Trump.
Philip, also in the retweeting has its dangers. And in that eclipse graphic that the president retweeted, some cursory reporting on the man who originally tweeted it. What did we find out?
Well, we found out that one of his recent tweets was actually an anti-Semitic tweet about people driving in his hometown of New Jersey, which he then tried to defend. You know, politicians are usually very careful about when they do these things, about how they use social media. Donald Trump is notoriously uncareful about it, and this is what happens. I mean, this is, I would say off the top of my head, at least the third time that he's retweeted someone who is
Another painfully naive statement by the so-called professionals. He just said that Donald Trump is not careful about the way he provokes and divides us. Somebody check his diaper. I think he may have gone poopy. Because clearly that is a fucking infant right there.
Demonstrably anti-Semitic or otherwise racist, simply because he acts impulsively and his thumbs move faster than his brain.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out.
But of course, anybody offended by me calling them an infant is just being a little too sensitive.
In 2004, a Marine corporal named Jason Dunham was on patrol with his unit in Iraq. They came under attack. Corporal Dunham threw himself on an enemy grenade to save his fellow Marines. He was killed. The rest of his platoon was saved because of his actions. And in 2007, Jason Dunham became only the second U.S. service member and the first U.S. Marine awarded the Medal of Honor, in his case posthumously, for the Iraq War. 2 months later, in March 2007, the U.S. Navy announced that a new guided missile destroyer would be named the USS Jason Dunham. This is that ship. It was christened by Jason Dunham's mother in 2009. It is in service now, and it likely will be for a very long time to come. USS Jason Dunham has that very meaningful name for a very meaningful reason. But it's known in the Navy as DDG 109. You can see the 109 there on the hull. All Navy ships have unique identifying numbers like that. This, for example, is the aircraft carrier of the George H.W. Bush. I always like this photo of former President Bush seeing them lower the top part of that aircraft carrier down onto the deck. You see the gigantic 77 in lights coming down from above him. The USS George H.W. Bush is the CVN 77 in the Navy. The 77 is several stories tall on the aircraft carrier, as you can see it there from the deck. Also, if you look in the lower right-hand corner of this picture, you can see that there's also a giant 77 painted right on the flight deck. The Navy does this for all their ships. Here's the USS Albany being commissioned as an attack submarine. And again, you see the unique identifying numbers on it there, the SSN 753 in this case. Navy started assigning unique numbers to its ships in the 1800s. Every one of them still gets a name, oftentimes a moving and meaningful name, but the idea was to simplify and shorten the unique identifiers for ships at sea to minimize confusion. The letters before the numbers signify what kind of ship the ship is, and then the number follows. For the class of ship that's called a cruiser, for example, the modern type of cruiser is called a guided missile cruiser. All the ships in that class have unique identifying numbers that start with CG. Before we had guided missile cruisers, though, we had armored cruisers or heavy cruisers, and their unique numbers started with CA. Armored cruisers. They're a crucial part of the Navy's fleet in World War II. And in 1945, one of these armored cruisers, the CA-35, you can see it here, steaming at sea, it got orders to make its way to an island in the Marianas, tucked between the Philippine Sea and the Pacific Ocean. They were due to make a very important delivery, but one that was so secret, the captain and his crew did not know what they were delivering. Unbeknownst to the captain and his crew, what they had on board were parts and enriched uranium for the atomic bomb that would later be dropped on Hiroshima. Again, the captain and the crew of the CA-35 didn't know what they were delivering. It was a top secret mission. Their cargo was secret, the route was secret, the existence of the whole mission was secret. So not many people actually knew where the CA-35 was going or where it was on any particular day because of the secrecy of its mission. It arrived in the Marianas July 26, 1945. They unloaded their secret cargo, and then they turned around and started to make their way to the Philippines. The cruiser had 1,200 men on board, and a Japanese sub found them and hit the ship with 2 torpedoes. Instantly crippled the ship, instantly knocked out the ship's communications. The order to abandon ship couldn't even be announced in an amplified way. It was spread by word of mouth. They had almost no time. That cruiser with 1,200 American sailors and Marines on board sank in 12 minutes. And of the 1,200 men on board, 400 of them died in the initial attack. That left about 800 men who ended up in the water, with only about a dozen small rafts between them. Very dire circumstances. Drinking water, exhaustion, exposure, shark attacks. The men who survived floated out there for 5 days with nothing. And no one came to rescue them. Because when the CA-35 went down, nobody had any idea that it had sunk. There were no communications from the ship. They'd been on a secret mission where nobody knew where they were or where they were supposed to be when. It was only almost 5 days later when a bomber pilot happened to spot an oil slick in the water. He buzzed lower to investigate. He called in the rescue. By the time the rescue came, only 316 men were left alive out of the 1,200 who'd been on board that ship and out of the 800 who went into the water. It was the Navy's worst disaster at sea. And now with 72 years gone by since then, of the 316 survivors that day, only 19 of them are still with us. A wreckage of the CA-35 was never found until this week. Finally. The proof they finally found it after all these years was when they saw the number on the hull. Yep, they saw that 35. That's it. This is the USS Indianapolis, the CA-35, more than 3 miles down in the Philippine Sea. And it's recognizable. You can see a gun barrel. There's apparently a spare float in this next image from one of the planes that was on board. There's a dual 40-millimeter aircraft gun with shells still loaded into the gun. The way they found this was with a research vessel owned by zillionaire Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft. And, you know, it's an astonishing adventure at sea to find something like this 3 miles down, far from where anybody thought it was more than 70 years later. But what a solemn thing, given the number of men who died on board and given what their last mission was before they were hit. And this news this week comes at an emotional time anyway for the U.S. Navy. Today, the Navy suspended the search at sea for the sailors missing from the USS John McCain. They're no longer treating that mission as a rescue mission. Instead, it is a recovery mission to try to find those sailors' remains. Today, the Navy released the names of one sailor whose body was recovered and the 9 others who are still missing. They've also removed the commander of the 7th Fleet, incidentally, relieved him from duty. Meanwhile, though, in the Philippine Sea, the CA-35, the USS Indianapolis, is found. all these years later. And it's interesting, the ship's exact location remains classified. They're continuing to survey the site, but there are no plans to excavate it or to disturb what's there. It's being treated as a war grave, as a final resting place. But now it is one that has finally been found.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching.
I want to ask you about the so-called dossier. Glenn Simpson, the former Wall Street Journal investigative reporter who's now the head of Fusion GPS, testified for 10 hours before the Judiciary Committee behind closed doors on Tuesday. And it was his firm who hired the very well-regarded British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele, to do that dossier. Now, Senator Grassley has told a town meeting in Iowa that he's looking into holding a public hearing, but doesn't have an inherent objection to releasing the transcript of that. Simpson and his attorney say that it's up to the committee to release the transcript.
I suddenly find myself trusting that guy just a little bit more because of how pissed off he looked that he was on camera.
Where do we stand on the investigation into finding out whether the really troubling contents of that so-called dossier may be true?
Well, there's been, I think, an effort by some to the firm Fusion GPS or discredit Mr. Steele. And as you say, Mr. Steele has a very good reputation, is reportedly a former British intelligence officer. I can't confirm that, but is reported to be very well regarded. And I think the key thing from an investigative point of view is not trying to impeach the people who produced the report or commissioned the report, but rather find out whether the facts are true in the report. And when you look at just what has become public, some of the public information is very much in line with what is reported in that dossier. And I'll give you one example that really strikes me, and that is the dossier talks about sources within the Kremlin reporting that they have 3 goals. They want to find out what support friendly U.S. persons would want. They want to gather relevant intelligence, and then they want to disseminate compromising information. Well, all of that is implicated in the Don Jr. emails that have already been released. An effort by the Russians through their proxies to find out what the Trump campaign would want, and what they want was negative information about Hillary Clinton. They certainly gathered that intelligence by hacking into democratic institutions, and they certainly disseminated that intelligence. So the 3 goals...
Maximo, you got the telepathic message. Good.
The source do seem to be very well borne out. I think people put too much focus on the salacious allegations within the dossier about that video, as if that's really what the dossier is about. That's the least significant part of the dossier. So
yeah, I hear you laughing.
We got to do everything we can to figure out what of the serious allegations are true or untrue, and spend a lot less time, I think, just trying to attack the messenger.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
So you don't have to back it up to see. I should be echoing right now. Hold on. I have a new trick. Well, not a new trick, but like a variation on the trick from earlier, where I'm just like behind the webcam, behind the, like the wizard behind the curtain. I don't know. Anyway, I was just thinking maybe I should text Joey, since he just got off of here, to tell Maximo on Twitter. But then I looked at the time, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be waking up soon, which means I should probably take a nap or something. Did it just bump you? Maximo was in, then it went back down to 1, and no, it's back up to 2. Oh, 3,000 subscribers all over the world. 2 people watching. It's funny how that works. Funny like fucking herpes. So, fun times with the storm. It's just kind of doing its thing down there. I have this one air hose that occasionally like leaks while it's sitting in the water at the adjuster, like going into that protein skimmer in there, in the tub, the air-powered protein skimmer. And every now and again, it sounds like little baby birds in a nest. It goes beep 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 beep. It's doing it right now. It's really fucking weird sounding and distracting. So anyways, look at that storm. It's strengthening right now. That, huh. Well, cool. Maybe we sleep in shifts, and you can do, you know, or Ahara work, and I can do Ishigo work, you know. All I gotta say is, where's Yororichi when you need that bitch, you know? But. So this storm, I don't see how it can't be the one from that vision that I've been trying to tell you all about for you know, every now and again for the past couple of years. Just because it happened at this ominous time, right after I was like, you know what? Natural disaster time. And I think you said that like 4 or 5 days ago. And it's, you know, there's Corpus Christi. There it goes. I don't know if I told y'all, but like, or how long it's been that I've been saying Corpus Christi on here, but you know, pretty sure I've mentioned Corpus Christi as sort of an ominous point several times, even regarding, you know, my plan to save the world. I'll start at Corpus Christi and ends in Springfield because I'm a smartass. Why Springfield? You'll see. National security reasons, mostly. Alright. So, I think I'm going to save the rest of these fascinating little videos for the morning. And I guess I'll screen a few of them while I try to get some sleep, or at least some sort of rest. It's such a pain in the ass, like, that MSNBC doesn't just upload their own fucking videos, you know? Like, MSNBC, please run a YouTube channel. Please, come experience this with me so you can help me sue them. It'll be very good for your bottom line in the long run. I mean, you will be, if you have the balls to do this, MSNBC. Anybody from MSNBC? Words. Okay. Anybody from MSNBC who sees this tomorrow, please notify your superiors that crazy Jesus guy on YouTube has prophesied that MSNBC will be, certain people in MSNBC have been faced with decisions in the past few weeks even, that if they have the courage to make the right decision, could wind up earning themselves medals of freedom. Like, I'm not going to tell you what president is going to award them to you. But it'd be cool if it was like Michelle Obama or something, like Oprah. You could get a Medal of Freedom from Oprah, man. She might give you a car too. Shit, I mean, she does that. Anyways, so the moral of the story from the get-go has been the failures of Christians in this Hippocratic, that's an old word, right-wing movement that has just been an embarrassment to Christianity and has coincided with the millennia's-old conspiracy, that is 2 millennia's-old conspiracy, to oppress the female sex and delete all history of the great women who helped build civilization. And read again. I told you 2 years ago that I would prove that hypocrites organize and conspire to oppress women, and thus the true record of Christ and his wife that validates the existence of Christ, not that disproves it, like, most people tell you that the Da Vinci Code does. Okay? I told you that I would cause reality itself to play out this lesson. Okay? And just in case you don't think it has, go ahead and watch this one for me.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. We have obtained an exclusive excerpt from Hillary Clinton's new book, and for the first time, we're hearing exactly what she thought about sharing a stage with Donald Trump. First, here's what the Democratic nominee had to say about why she's revisiting last year's losing bid for the White House.
I don't have all the answers, and this isn't a comprehensive account of the 2016 race. That's not for me to write. I have too little distance and too great a stake in it. Instead, this is my story. I want to pull back the curtain on an experience that was exhilarating, joyful, humbling, infuriating, and just plain baffling. Writing this wasn't easy. Every day that I was a candidate for president, I knew that millions of people were counting on me, and I couldn't bear the idea of letting them down. But I did. I couldn't get the job done, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. In this book, I write about moments from the campaign that I wish I could go back and do over. If the Russians could hack my subconscious, they'd find a long list. I also capture some moments I want to remember forever, like when my tiny granddaughter raced into the room while I was practicing my convention speech. and what it was like hours later to step on stage to deliver that speech as the first woman ever nominated by a major political party for President of the United States.
In the excerpt, we have Secretary Clinton also address this moment from October. You'll remember this, when Donald Trump stood directly behind her while the two candidates debated at Washington University in St. Louis.
This is not okay, I thought. It was the second presidential debate, and Donald Trump was looming behind me. 2 days before, the world heard him brag about groping women. Now we were on a small stage, and no matter where I walked, he followed me closely, staring at me, making faces. It was incredibly uncomfortable. He was literally breathing down my neck. My skin crawled. It was one of those moments where you wish you could hit pause and ask everyone watching, well, what would you do? Do you stay calm, keep smiling?
Speaking of hitting pause, I just want to make a note right quick. I had the high usage notification, seemed to be condensing frames, and went up from 1 to 3 watchers for like 5 seconds, and then went back down to 1. So, back down to 1. One person watching. Hopefully it's Maximo, not the troll bot. Maximo, you still there?
And carry on as if he weren't repeatedly invading your space? Or do you turn, look him in the eye, and say loudly and clearly, back up, you creep, get away from me. I know you love to intimidate women, but you can't intimidate me, so back up.
But he did intimidate you. He intimidated all of us.
I chose option A. I kept my cool, aided by a lifetime of dealing with difficult men trying to throw me off. I did, however, grip the microphone extra hard. I wonder, though, whether I should have chosen option B. It certainly would have been better TV. Maybe I have overlearned the lesson of staying calm, biting my tongue, digging my fingernails into a clenched fist, smiling all the while, determined to present a composed face to the world.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSN.
I tell you what. Shame on all of us for letting this happen. For letting a despicable, deplorable demon of a man intimidate us, intimidate her, just bully his way into the White House. Woe unto America, for she has truly fallen. And if you can't see that, I'm ashamed to call you human. So, anyways, that's all for tonight. Be back on in a few hours, I'm sure. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Please click the like button. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed already. And check the notification bell to make sure you get notifications. Thanks for watching. Y'all come back next video.
my pain. Back to breathe out of another thing. I know, oh Lord, I know it's in my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way it treated me too many times before. Don't you know you love them, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. The baby ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Thank you.